What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review a 2010 mixtape by Young Jeezy. Basically, this product is called Trap or Die 2 by Any Means Necessary, and it came out in the spring of 2010. So Jeezy wanted to do a sequel to Trap or Die, his hit mixtape and his breakout mixtape from 2005. This came out basically about mid-summer 2010 as far as that pitch gun particularly went. It was a good concept around that particular time to kind of have. It's just too bad that this is such a bomb of like a project here. It just really doesn't live up to the Trap or Die name and stuff like that, I'd have to say. It's an unfortunate concept just because mixtapes were pretty huge throughout 2010, 2011, some of those type fairs. But as far as that particular kind of went, this just doesn't live up to the initial kind of phase that Jeezy had going in like the mid 2000s and late 2000s as far as that pitch went. Now the thing about 2010 is the tides had kind of shifted. Things like Gucci Mane and OJ the Juice Man were starting to blow up. Gorilla Zoe, some of those type folks in like the Atlanta scene as far as that particular kind of went. And Jeezy wasn't as much of like a household name. I mean, he had a series of hit albums between like Thug Motivation 101 to About the Recession from 2008, but it was just kind of an awkward transaction just because the 3 years that Jeezy took off between the recession and TM 103, a lot of things kind of happened within that interim that kind of shaped. A lot of things happened within those 3 years that kind of shifted him out of the spotlight, and he wasn't like the front runner in rap music like he was in like the late 2000s. I'd have to say that. So that's kind of the concept of what happened here, and some of the tides had kind of shifted. I do feel like in 2009, Jeezy was still pretty dope as hell as far as that particular kind of went. I reviewed like Trappin' Ain't Dead back in February, and that was a pretty excellent project. That was basically like an expansion pack like 6 months later of like the Recession album, which was definitely pretty dope. But definitely by the time you got to like the summer of 2010, the Recession was starting to show its age a little bit. And it was just kind of a concept of this question as to whether or not it was still dominant. Now Jeezy at least tries like once or twice on here to kind of bring off some Recession type vibes, but it just feels dated compared to some of the stuff that had been going on in 2010. It wasn't just like Gorilla Zoe and OJ the Juice Man and Gucci Mane, but then it was also drill rap, Waka Flocka Flame, Slim Duncan, Rick Ross, some of those type folks that were doing that sort of sound, folks like Lex Luger, those type beats. It was just kind of differential as to how that particular was kind of happening. Lots of good mixtape fare. Yo Gotti was another one in that particular type vibe that was kind of going along with that. And then probably just within a few months, Future was getting ready to blow up. So it's just kind of the concept just as far as that particular transaction kind of happened, and it kind of wound up screwing Jeezy over a little bit, at least on this product now. And now Jeezy got himself sorted out and figured out pretty quickly in 2011, I'd have to say, because I did give TM 103 Hustler's Ambition like a 10 out of 10. That's definitely another classic, just to say mine, along with his other three albums from the late 2000s, The Inspiration, Thug Motivation 101, and The Recession. TM 103 is another hit classic album, I'd have to say. But this particular project just found Jeezy in a real identity crisis. It was just really weird seeing him around this particular time because I just feel like he didn't really know what sound to go with. It seemed like he messed with Don Cannon on this particular project. I want to say that DJ Drama was a part of, I know that DJ Drama was a part of the original Trap or Die, but I want to say that Don Cannon, which Jeezy was affiliated with quite a bit throughout the late 2000s, is back on this particular project. But a lot of these particular productions on here just don't work quite as well. There's a lot of just like kind of cruise out, kind of car surfing pitches like that as far as that particular kind of goes. Just a lot of day type fare and things of that relative nature that just doesn't really suit this particular product quite as well. Jeezy really doesn't have like a ton of turn up songs in this particular product, doesn't have like the standard hits. A lot of these, if you like the song Circulate by Jeezy and Don Cannon off the Recession, some of those type pitches, not quite as soulful as that particular song, but definitely the same sort of same sort of summary, just kind of car cruising safari type stuff that you get in particular just around like between like June and August, some of those type pitches as far as that particular kind of goes. But a lot of this just doesn't really suit this particular album that well. I feel like it's just kind of having some of that mixtape Don Cannon type fare from like 2005, 2006, but just like a worse rendition of it. And that's kind of the problem, is that I just feel like Jeezy's just kind of in an identity crisis here. He doesn't really have any good singles or turn up songs on this particular product. He tries some styles that just feel different, and he even has some styles that are just different from his particular song. He has like a Gucci Mane and OJ the Juice Man type song on here, like Trap or Die 2, which is interesting just because Gucci Mane and Jeezy were kind of enemies at the time. And it just really feels like the sound, Jeezy didn't really have a sound around this particular time. And this was, I think this is part of the reason why Jeezy didn't drop an album in 2010, because he was still trying to get things sorted out as far as what to do in particular. Because when you think of like the hit songs, the only real true hit song on this particular project that really feels like it has some sort of consolidation about it is this Lose My Mind with Plies. It's one of the few songs on here that has like its own particular edge towards it. It's just a brief concept of what Jeezy probably should have been doing in 2010, but for the most part, most of this is just kind of more of like soulful kind of searching as far as that particular kind of happens, and just some other kind of cruddy type trap beats that just don't really work that well. Just the amalgamation trying to get some of these things on here. Like I feel like Hood Politics is kind of like a poor trap ladies type song in particular. It's kind of something that like Slim Duncan, or it's kind of something that Slim Duncan, Waka Flocka, or Gucci Mane would kind of do, but just a worse rendition of that. There's just some ones on here like Ride With Me. It's a pretty poor type one that just is kind of like an outing type for that just doesn't stack up to much. There's just some poor Don Cannon type productions on here that feel like kind of like Southern Fried variations of like the East Coast type sound that Jeezy just pulled up there in like the Trap or Die days. I mean, I feel like Jeezy's attempts at soulful on this particular project are just not good at all. It's just kind of the concept. He nailed it on songs like Circulate off the Recession. He nailed it back in the 2000s on albums like Trap or Die and Can't Ban the Snowman, some of those type pitches, but it just doesn't have the same appeal. It just really feels dated and just not half-baked, and just things like that that just really don't have that appeal. So out of 22 songs on this particular mixtape, I really only wound up recommending to you 4.5 if you count the song Lose My Mind, which is also on the deluxe edition of TM103. I'd have to say it's just better to get it over there. I'd have to say it just has less, just doesn't have the DJ screams and stuff like that. So but we'll go ahead and talk about these songs on here I recommend. So Trap or Die 2 is one. Basically the 4 songs I recommend on this particular product would be Trap or Die 2, the title track, My Tool, Trap or Die Reloaded, and then Insane. So talk about some of these. Basically, Trap or Die 2 is like a Zaytoven trap type beat. I'd have to say in particular, this really reminds me of Gucci Mane and OJ the Juice Man, some of those type folks. I'd have to say, and a little bit of Migos in like their early 2010s type era. I'd say it's like a low key kind of trap house buzzer of a song. I'd have to say in particular, and it's just out of sorts for Jeezy as far as him doing this particular style. I mean, Jeezy on a Gucci Mane type beat just feels really. I mean, that's the concept of what was going on with just how much of an identity crisis that Jeezy was having around this time, is the fact that he's kind of doing like Gucci Mane type songs. Not like it's a bad rendition. It's a pretty good song. Bun B's on here on top of that just to be able to say it, but it just kind of feels differential for him to do some Gucci Mane type styles. Just really didn't feel like the most like. I mean, it's an appealing song, but it just felt like something that probably wouldn't have happened under normal circumstances back in like the late 2000s or early 2010s otherwise, because I don't think he did terribly many other Zaytoven type beats, but it is a good song. My Tool is one of the few hit songs on here that just has like some typical kind of late 2000s type quality, or just overall quality in general. This I would have to say it's a good concept, but there need to be way more songs like this particular one. I'd have to say it's like a breezy kind of vintage late 2000s trap cruise around type song. I'd have to say this has some Drumma Boy type feels. I don't know why Drumma Boy was not on this particular product. Definitely probably should have been. I know Jeezy probably had the budget to be able to do it, but this is just like a standard kind of day out. Another good breezy type one. Just would have to say it's a good concept of that. This has Birdman, and My Tool has Birdman and Bun B on here. So both of the Bun B songs with Jeezy are pretty excellent. This is a good classic combination. Bun B and Jeezy usually make some pretty hit quality music, so I'm glad that Bun B is on here twice, because at least these Bun B songs that Jeezy has with them are good and able to depend on, I'd have to say. So these are some nice ones. A surprising highlight on here is Trap or Die Reloaded. This has a real triumphant kind of Greek-like type tone, something that you would hear out of like Troy or something like that, one of those type movies. It's something that feels like out of like The Gladiator, one of those type ones. This has a triumphant type feel like I was saying. This is a good Don Cannon day commerce of a song that had to say in particular, and this is just like a good motivational outing. So Jeezy retained some of his motivational type pep that he's normally known for with like Thug Motivation, some of those type things. It's a pretty nice one. It's a real good feel good type song I had to suppose in particular. Just the emphasis and the overall emphaticness of this particular song is pretty strong. I'd have to say it's definitely, there need to be way more songs like this as well. I'd have to say it's this kind of concept. This is kind of like a lightning in a bottle type song, at least on this particular product. I'd have to say Trap or Die Reloaded is like lightning on a bottle on this particular product, and Jeezy normally puts out quality project. That's what's so surprising about this particular product, is just because of how poor it is. It's just unlike Jeezy for the most part. It just was strange that he just felt so kind of fumblish on this particular product. Just the reasoning behind why this was just not more of like a headway and just an overall strong project, considering the fact that it was Trap or Die 2, and the Trap or Die stuff is typically seen as some of Jeezy's best works, but this one's a far cry from being able to say that. I'd have to say, but it's this kind of concept. So this is not lightning in a bottle, but at least this particular song, Lightning, is Trap or Die Reloaded is lightning in a bottle, I'd say. But Insane's another nice one. This is one of the yesteryear type songs, like I was talking about. This is definitely like some yesteryear kind of recession era type stuff. I'd have to say it's the yesteryear kind of recession era hit. Is the concept about this in particular. This is a very strange song to kind of hear in 2010 times. I'd have to say in particular, just with all the changes that had happened just between mid-late 2009 to about the first half of 2010. I'd have to say the mixtape type fare Gucci Mane, Waka Flocka, OJ the Juice Man, Slim Dunkin, some of those type folks, the drill rap, some of those type sounds, Lex Luger, a bunch of those folks, Future, Yo Gotti, some of those type folks. Just a lot of changes that kind of happen, but this is still a pretty good trunk rattler, even in different times, I'd have to say, and it's a pretty good bop, I'd have to say. So it's a dope concept. This really feels haunting. There's not a ton of songs like this on this particular product, which is unfortunate. I know that Jeezy probably didn't want to stick with the recession era sound. I know that Jeezy probably didn't want to stick with like the recession era sound, considering the times had changed and pitches like that. It's not to say that that couldn't have happened, like he could have thrown it on there, but it just felt somewhat dated compared to the stuff that was going on in recent times. Just the concept of it. But this is a good song, but it's just kind of the concept of it just feels like still stuck in. It's just kind of the concept that Insane just feels stuck in like late 2008 pitches like that. I had to say in particular, just about 18 months before this particular project, or almost 2 years before this particular project came out. So it's this kind of concept. I look after just some relative. I mean, the songs that are good are pretty relatively good on here. I mean, they definitely feel like somewhat inspired, but it's just kind of concept. I just feel like it was just strange that Jeezy could not put together and throw together some more quality hit songs on here. Like there's some ones that I wanted to like Grape. I kind of felt like that one could have been like a Grape Swisher Sweet type song, him talking about smoking grapes, some of those type pitches. But just the production type fair, there's a lot of songs on here that just have like one verse and just kind of feel like cruddy productions that just probably should have had something better, just a little bit less DJ screens and pitches like that. The emphasis is just more on like the lyrics more so than like the production type fair. Just the amount, the synchronization of like the lyrics in the production type fair is just not really synchronized with some of these type songs. I kind of feel like at least that happens with Grape. There's like another one that happens with Camaro and some of those type ones, and some of these are just one verse type songs. I feel like probably should have been more of like a song, some of that type pitch to kind of fleshed out these in particular. I really feel like songs like Stop Playing With Me was just a pretty horrid beat. I don't know where that one particularly came from. That one just really didn't match up with anything that Jeezy probably should have done. It just felt like, that barely felt like a Jeezy song, just the quality of that one. It just was so subpar compared to his normal fanfare as far as that particular kind of goes. There's a string of like Don Cannon type productions on here that try to bring it back to the Trap or Die type days from like the mid 2000s. I had to say like Illin with the Clips, Just Saying, The Takeover, D-Boys, some of those type ones, but they just don't add up to much. Even Greatest Trapper Alive, but a lot of these just pale in comparison to being able to do it. It's surprising that Jeezy just didn't have a more quality soulful type touch on this particular project, because I definitely think he shouldn't have lost that, and it just didn't make sense that he did, I'd have to say. Hood Politics was just kind of a poor ladies type song that just didn't really amount to much. It had to say in particular, just probably needed a little bit more of like, I mean, I understand the concept of it being more softcore, but it just didn't pull off the vibes as being quite as bland. But I mean, he nailed these type of songs better on TM103. He definitely had some trap songs for ladies on that particular project, but this one just didn't do it that well. Another song that kind of attempted it is either like Go Hard or Talking, one of these type ones, but there's like one that kind of has like a more softer type recession type kind of leery, eerie type production on there, but it just doesn't work quite as well as some of those type ones. Then there's just some kind of differential like topics on here, like I Remember and Time, that just don't amount to much either, and Talking, some of these type ones. So it's just kind of, even when the songwriting is there on some of these type concepts, just not getting like these trap oriented ones. I even not getting these trap oriented trunk rumblers and some of these type ones. I just kind of feel like the overall interest spark of this particular project is just not very attention grabbing. And I feel like the concept behind this, a lot of this is just trying to be more of like, it's kind of a songwriting type project to kind of show off some things, but it just doesn't pull off the vibe quite as well. It needs some attention grabbers. Definitely needed a song like Lose My Mind that just has a lot more spark, and just something that could have been on this particular project. That could have been like one of Jeezy's best. Like when you think of Trap or Die, it had obviously like the Trap or Die lead single, the Trap or Die title track that had Bun B on there. That was just a trunk rumble. It just had a bunch of rattlers, just things like that. Some of the best songs, some of those type ones. I don't remember the songs that were on the original Trap or Die because it's been a while, but just being able to say, had a bunch of hit songs on there, just being able to say that wound up being on Jeezy's later album, but there's just really nothing on this particular product that feels like it probably could have been on an album. It was just kind of in an awkward era for Jeezy. It's just kind of in an awkward era for Jeezy that just didn't amount to much. This is just kind of a dry patch of an era that just didn't really do much for him or have much amalgamation of something interesting to really carry much spark and just really have much. It just doesn't have the bottle popping songs, the trunk rattlers, the cruise out type songs in a good fashion, some of those type moments. Not really any haunting makeshift on here, things like that. Some just overall spark of interest, this kind of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this mixtape me recommending 4.5 songs out of 22 on here. I'm gonna go ahead and give this mixtape like a 2 out of 10. It's pretty poor just because that's the concept behind it. There's just not a lot of compelling interest about this. Lots, just too many things to complain about just within the concept of all these amalgamated type problems that just don't really lead up, that just don't really carry on like the Trap or Die legacy that well. I definitely feel like the original Trap or Die, despite the fact that I gave that a relatively poor score when I reviewed it back in 2020, just stomps all over this one in particular. Jeezy just had better Don Cannon beats on that particular days, and just the chemistry on this particular project just wasn't there as much. Just things like that. The social score is going to get like a 3.5 out of 10 because I do feel like the songs that are good are relatively good enough to still download this just because it's free and pitches like that. But it's just kind of a disappointing listen just because it doesn't really amalgamate to being like a classic project, especially with all those songs. If there had been like 13 songs or 14 or 15, something like that, some number where it wasn't me disliking like a seventh or a fifth or a sixth of the particular project, I'd have to say probably less than like a fifth of the project, like a sixth. I mean, 4 out of 22, you know, that's just kind of the concept. That's like 2/9, 2/8, something like that of the particular project. I'm not gonna do the math while doing the review, but it's just it's not very good quotient to be able to say that as far as that particular gun goes. Just kind of the thing. But 3.5 out of 10 social, just because some of these I do feel like My Tool and Trap or Die 2 are at least some decent trap rumblers to kind of get just within a relative sense. But most of these are just kind of jacking the styles or just pitches that were all, or just kind of pitches of styles that were kind of yesteryear type ones. Like My Tool and Insane are yesteryear type trap productions, and then Trap or Die 2 and Trap or Die Reloaded are just really the only real surprise hit on here is just Trap or Die Reloaded, because Trap or Die 2 is just like a jacking of like Gucci Mane's type style, I'd have to say. But that's just kind of the concept. I look after it. It's kind of a flat project, but I still recommend it enough to just get some of these songs just to appreciate the stuff that Jeezy was doing around this time. But it's just kind of an interesting kind of spell for Jeezy just because he didn't have that much inspiration or just the concept of just having the real mojo this time to really get something quality pushed out, I'd have to say. But it's this kind of thing. So in terms of the future, like Jeezy put out a double album back in November 2023, so that's his most recent project. It is a pretty beefy project. We'll have to see about some more of these. I do want to get to projects like Snowfall, his hit mixtape with DJ Drama, as far as that pitch can happen, because that was his previous one before that one, which came out in the fall of 2022. So there is some more here. I'm definitely going to get to some more of these projects, definitely some more of these mixtapes from like 2010, 2011, some of those type pitches, 2012. We'll definitely get to some more of these, but it's unfortunate that this didn't live up to the Trap or Die legacy. But I would still have to say that maybe with enough acquired taste, eventually it could have more boilers and bubblers on here, but this doesn't feel likely at this particular time. But that may change over time. But for the time being, 2 out of 10, 3.5 social.